Hey, how's it going? It's Cali T here, and it's been a minute since I've done one of these videos. And today I'm going to be recommending you 10 anime movies that are not made by what I like to call the big three: Studio Ghibli, Makoto Shinkai, and Mamoru Hosoda. It's hard though, right? Because I'm not recommending you to go see these films. I feel like the majority of those films have a little bit of weight to them, right? They've been able to express very universal themes that a lot of different people from various backgrounds, ages, cultures have been able to relate to effectively, which is easier said than done, and they deserve their props for that. I mean, if you haven't seen any of the films within the Triforce, I mean, what are you doing? Do yourself a favor and enjoy the marvelous works that they have brought to the art of motion pictures. Anyways, as always, my lists are not in any kind of hierarchy, they're just ones that I like that are on a list. So I think this is a long enough intro, so grab yourself a snack and some tea, because I see this being a long video, and let's get started. My first recommendation is Tokyo Godfathers, directed by Satoshi Kon. Now, I know what some of my elitist friends are saying. But Cali, what anime fan hasn't seen any of the works of the great Satoshi Kon? To which I would say, you would be surprised. In my experience, I've encountered a lot of people who are kind of hesitant of his works based off a trailer, a meme, a gif, what have you, and I can understand where they might be coming from if they're not familiar with Kon's works. But I think Tokyo Godfathers is a great way to ease somebody in, and not to mention, as a standalone, it's a great winter holiday film. In short, the story surrounds three homeless people who discover an abandoned newborn baby in the trash of all places on Xmas Eve, and go on quite the adventure to try to identify the baby's parents. This film has a little bit of everything. It has mystery, action, drama, adventure, and I think it's one that you might enjoy too. So if you can, definitely check it out. Which brings me to my second recommendation, which is A Letter to Momo, directed by Hiroyuki Okiura. The story follows Momo, an 11-year-old girl who found a letter her dad was in the midst of writing to her before he passed away. She moves to the countryside with her mother, and it is there that she has a fateful encounter with three demons that know a lot about her but are not allowed to say anything about themselves. And mystery, adventure, and hilarity ensues as Momo tries to make sense of her new normal and of her new demon companions that seem to stalk her wherever she goes. And that's pretty much all I can say about it before I step into spoiler territory. Now, notably, this film's pacing is a bit on the slower side, but I don't think that necessarily detracts from its overall story. I mentioned this in another video where I recommended this movie, but I think this movie is designed to be a crowd pleaser. It has a lot of the same beats as a Studio Ghibli film, but it still does it in its own creative way, which is so refreshing. So if you've got a Sunday when you want to chill, I recommend that you give this film a try. My third recommendation is Penguin Highway, directed by Hiroyasu Ishida. The story centers around a 4th grade boy who, admittedly, for all intents and purposes, talks like an adult, who has a fascination with all things related to science. So when penguins start showing up out of seemingly nowhere in a small hometown that is miles and miles away from any sea, he vows to solve the mystery. The mystery, indubitably. This film unexpectedly was very touching, and yes, I understand that
yes, my favorite animal is a penguin, and that might actually contribute to a factor of why I enjoy this film so much, but
nevertheless, this film was very endearing and kind of touched on a little bit of existentialism, why are we here? What is the meaning of life? Why, Gamora? All in all, it's a great summer adventure that I hope you don't miss out on, and you get to learn a little bit of science along the way, cause science is cool! Speaking of science, my fourth recommendation is Panama Inverted, directed by Yasuhiro Yoshiura. Whoa, even the last director's first name and this director's first name is inverted. Whoa, that's neat! The story begins with scientists exploring a really interesting concept of converting gravity into an energy source, but you guessed it, things go haywire! Because Mother Nature is never in the mood for human shenanigans. And through the chaos of it all, it created a reversal of nearly everyone and everything's gravitational pull, which resulted in nearly everyone and everything quite literally falling into the sky. And years later enters our heroine Panama, a curious young teenager who, through a series of intriguing events, stumbles upon a young lad who does not fall. And that's where I'm going to cut myself off because spoilers. All in all, I thought this film had a spark of originality to it. Granted, there are many tropes that it falls, but into, but I was still like, ooh, that's a neat idea. And I was like really eager to see where they would take it in the film. Now, the ending might have you doing just a little bit of extra homework to kind of make sense of it all. And the payoff at the end is kind of meh, but like, unpopular opinion warning. I feel that it's important to watch films that aren't necessarily like creme de la creme, because then you understand like the spectrum of like what makes a film great, you know, and the like aspects to that. And by no means am I saying that Panama Inverted is like a horrible film or anything. On the contrary, overall, I thought it to be an enjoyable ride, and I'm sure that anybody who has a taste for sci-fi and fantasy might find enjoyment in it. Moving right along, we are at the halfway mark with recommendation number 5, Into the Forest of Fireflies Light, directed by Takahiro Omori. This short film is based off of Yuki Midorikawa's one-shot manga of the same name, and it follows the story of a young girl who gets lost in the forest and the friendship that sparks between her and the spirit being thing that finds her. And amidst their budding relationship, a catch remains that the spirit must never be touched by a human. Is this dramatic enough? Because it's dramatic. I found that this film was a great manga to anime adaptation, and I personally enjoyed its simplicity because it was coupled with effective storytelling that still conveyed a bittersweet tale even with its 44-minute runtime. So if you find yourself having some free time during an afternoon, I highly recommend that you check it out, unless you're salty. This might not be the greatest film for that. Speaking of caution, I'll admit, I avoided this film like the plague, and it is In This Corner of the World, directed by Sunao Katabuchi. Now, the reason I avoided this film was because if it was going to be anything like The Grave of the Fireflies, I'm exiting out. Like, I can't handle it.
I can't handle it.
That movie had me in tears, contemplating life, and just left me in a really, really sad state of things. It was like it punched me in the gut and said, think about that. Marinate in the pain. In This Corner of the World, not gonna lie, at times it's still a punch to the gut, but it comforts you. It offers you a pillow to lay your weary soul and says, there, it will be alright. Anyways, the story centers around Suzu, a very artistic and innocent young girl, and follows her life during the World War II era. One thing that I really enjoyed about this film was the artistic interpretation of Suzu's mind towards the events that she's witnessing and experiencing around her. I also like how this film highlighted the everyday contributions made by everyday people, like women or people who weren't in the military or just who weren't soldiers, and the struggles that they went through to maintain some sort of like security and order and just remaining positive in such a dark time in history. Nevertheless, if you're looking for an enriching and beautiful tale that won't let you drown in a pool of your own tears, In This Corner of the World is not a bad option. But did someone order tears? Because for my 7th recommendation, I am bringing you Machia, directed by Mare Okada. And surprisingly, it got me at the end. And mind you, I was good. I was solid. I was chilling throughout this entire film until the end. And the ending wasn't even sad. It was just so touching and beautiful. Machia tells the story of, well, Machia, a being who's a part of a special group of people that live for hundreds of years and that live peaceful lives away from humans, but through a series of devastating events that happen to Machia, she finds herself raising an orphaned human child, and the story follows the tests and obstacles she must face in order to do so. Not only is this film's sentimental story such a delight, but this film is also just so visually stunning, and I totally recommend this deceptively great fable to anybody who loves fantasy and a heartfelt story. And we do love heartfelt stories because coming in at number 8 is Ride Your Wave, directed by Masaaki Yuasa. Ride Your Wave tells the romantic tale of the love between surfer Hinako and firefighter Minato from Hinako's point of view, as she struggles with confidence and follows her emotional journey towards finding her ability to stand on her own 2 feet and ride her own wave. And that's all I'm giving out as a description. I saw the trailer when I went to go see Weathering with You. Am I pointing there? Yes, I'm pointing there. And I was bummed when it mentioned the twist that happened. And granted, it's probably part of like the story's premise and it's not a big deal, but I think I would have preferred not knowing like the big thing that happens. One of the things that I really appreciated about this film was the depiction of Hinako and Minato's relationship. It just had some like real, like ordinary moments between couples that aren't necessarily super like dramatized or like over romanticized. And I was like, oh, I enjoy this. It's nice. Plus with that like loose animation style, I thought that it worked seamlessly into like the watercolor elements and like the actual depiction of water in this film. And I thought the characters just fit so perfectly within the space. Anyways, it's my recommendation that you just go into it blindly. Like, don't watch a trailer, don't see nothing about it, don't read a description. Just like, you know, let it just happen organically. Otherwise, I find that you might be waiting for the twist to happen. Granted, if you do become aware of the plot twist, I don't think it should stop anyone's like overall enjoyment of the film. At least it didn't like necessarily stop mine. So if you do see it, just know that it's a straightforward, no-brainer romance that's full of self-discovery and has a dash of the supernatural element out there. And hopefully that's enough to whet the appetite for all of my romance lovers out there. Next, charging in at number 9 is Studio Trigger's Mare, directed by Hiroyuki Imaishi. The story begins with the telling of a world disaster that resulted in fires breaking out all over the globe by, you guessed it, spontaneous human combustion. And no, it's not Fire Force. But some humans did not succumb to the flames and instead were able to harness the fire's ability and thus were aptly named the Burnish. And so the government introduced Freeze Force. No, I am not joking. And the Birding Rescue Squad, whose jobs are to put out fires made by the Burnish, and to search and respond to incidents involving a mysterious group of radicals known as Mad Burnish, whose reported motivation is to burn everyone and everything. This not Fire Force film is quite the spectacle. Mare delivers a fantastic score and pushes the realm of traditional 2D and 3D animation, not to mention its storyline flows from start to finish. I understand that a lot of people critique this film because it doesn't really expand on any one idea for too long, to which I say, fair. But the film is like an anime series without the series. It just gives you the good bits of like an anime series and just cuts out all the extra fluff in just under 2 hours, which is a lot more than I can say for a lot of anime that spanned over, I don't know, 26 episodes. So if you like action-packed stories with a dash of mech, definitely take a look at Mare. And finally, my last recommendation goes to a cute little gem that I almost completely disregarded, and its name is Okus In, directed by Kitaro Kosaka. After losing her parents, Oko goes to live with her grandmother at her inn, and it is there where she comes to learn of responsibility and healing through the help of a friendly spirit who also resides at her grandma's inn. I found that Oku's Inn was not only charming but surprisingly heartfelt and had such a great cast of colorful characters. I also loved how respectfully it highlighted the different ways people might process trauma and grief and kind of gave them a safe space to do so without necessarily like condemning them for their current feelings, which is something I think is just uncommon in this area of film. And even with all of this film's flaws, I still find this film to be such a hidden gem, and I encourage you not to let it slide under your radar. And that's a wrap for this video. Thank you so much for stopping by. I truly appreciate it. As always, are there any other anime that we should keep like our eyes peeled for? Please let myself and the community know your thoughts in the comment section below. And stay tuned for more anime and otaku-esque stuff coming your way. And hey, if you like this video, please let me know by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And that's it for me. Thank you again for spending a part of your day with me, and I hope the rest of your day is brilliant. Until next time!